All right, so we do have everybody. So let me, I think I can, oh, well, Shruti said she was already recording. So we're already been recording. So we're in good shape here. Okay, I think we're all here. So is everybody ready?
Yeah, it looks like the recording has been turned off and
yeah, I turned it off just because nothing was happening, and then I just turned it back on. So
Cool.
I'll use this recording.
Okay, good.
Thanks, Rudy.
Okay, well, listen, good evening, everybody. And sorry about the difficulty getting on tonight. So listen, thank goodness we didn't have any applicants tonight, so it's just us. So, but we're here at a very important meeting to talk about new members and to take the recommendations from the nominating subcommittee, and then this committee has to decide in terms of, if we are adding new members, and if so, how many. And so let me go back to the last meeting we held on this matter, where the direction that was given back to the nominating subcommittee was to, because there was some confusion over some of the information, and they were asked to basically come back and give their recommendations for 2 new members, regular members, and then 3 associate members, and then just rank those associate members. It was just a way to get, enough names on a kind of a nominating ballot. It wasn't a commitment at the time that we were going to take all those 5 different people and add them to the committee. And I think we all recognize that. So what we need to do tonight is we need to decide again, if we're adding members and how many. And then what I sent out was kind of the summary of the nominating subcommittee. And once again, it caused a little bit of confusion because of just the manner in which we had to vote. And what I mean by that is we weren't able to vote as a group and just make, selections one by one. And the reasoning for that was because some of the people were representing organizations, and some of those organizations were providing predetermined names on their so-called ballot or whatever. And so there wasn't like somebody from those organizations could kind of make decisions on the fly. And on top of that, not everyone could meet at the same time. And so we did accept people's absentee ballots for some of the names. So what we did is we just took everybody on the nominating committee, and we took their votes for those 5 positions, and just put them in a spreadsheet, and then just came up with the totals. And so in a couple instances, there's some ties on the totals. And then there are other instances where maybe some candidates that were being recommended for a member had more membership votes, and then when it came to associate, maybe didn't have as many associate votes because they were put in the membership column. So we as a group have to kind of sort that out tonight. And I think it starts with just understanding how many people we want to bring to the committee. So with that, I will open it for discussion. Mr. Penniman.
I would like to move that we don't add anyone this year. I mean, I've raised this before. It isn't something that is in response to particular candidates. But in the last year or more, we've not had much time to ask questions. You are always telling us to cut short our questions because there isn't enough time. Our meetings go late, and we never actually have discussion of what we hear at the meetings. We only ask our questions and then we vote. And I don't think that appropriately gives us the chance to do the job we're supposed to do and to collaborate by actually having discussions. Adding more members will be more questions and more time spent. So I would move we add nobody this year.
Mr. Pegues. You're muted.
I looked at that and I went and looked at the bylaws, and there's a way to do it, but you have to do it by amending the bylaws because basically the Article 3 membership states the committee shall consist of 15 members. And the way to modify that, since it's a bylaw statement and doesn't give any other authority or direction, is that 2/3 of the membership, not just those present, but the full membership of the committee, would have to vote on it. And then after that, if it was successful, or rather 2/3 of the membership would have to vote yes for the resolution. And then after that, that resolution has to go to the Reston Association Board of Directors to be accepted by them, which they may or may not do. So that's in
What was your
Article,
point about what we have to do with the Reston Association?
it's not a point, it's a statement in the bylaws itself. I can read it to you.
Yeah, to make an
How-
amendment
how-
to our bylaws, we have to get approval from RA. It's Articles 8.
Correct.
I don't remember that before,
Yeah,
Well, it's in the
there,
bylaws and
William.
it's like.
because it's
Richard.
not their committee, it's the supervisors committee.
It's
Yeah, I don't know how it
irrelevant.
got in there, Richard, but I'm looking at
Do
it
we
right
have a
now.
current?
I
we have
have
a
the current, I just
version of-
downloaded it the other day. It's Article 8 Amendment Procedure, which I shall read. These bylaws may be amended by resolution approved by 2/3 of the committee, provided such amendment does not conflict with Rest Association bylaws and is ratified by a majority vote of the Reston Association Board of Directors. That's been in the bylaws since they were created.
2004.
2004.
Yeah, let me ask David if he can weigh in on that, because David, I know you might have some history on that my memory is bad.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much of this history is really applicable here, but there were a number of years ago when I was chairman we got a call from Reston Association. I won't name the person who was in charge at the time, but this person insisted that we were the Reston Association's committee, not the supervisors. And we straightened them out on that. And somehow I'm not quite sure how the Reston Association weighs into this and why that's in the bylaws. I don't ever remember having it put in there. But the fact is that, if William has dug out the bylaws and it's in there, then we have to somehow excise Reston Association from their responsibility of approving any of our bylaws changes. It's simply, ever since I've been a member, this has been the supervisors committee. And
Yeah,
Well,
let me
That's
ask
we
probably,
were-
that's
me
probably,
ask William.
the Reston Association, but we're not their
Rob,
enemy.
can I
but,
propose that we attack the bylaws thing somewhere else down the road? And
Yes.
if it says we have to have 15 members, then at least it sounds like we need to get ourselves up to that.
We
Yeah,
could
let me just
decide
ask-
that no one was satisfactory under the circumstances until we get the other thing fixed. Because
I
it
suppose you
Let me ask-
could.
is
let me
not a
just ask
Reston
William-
Association committee, period.
Yeah, let me ask
It
William
never has
Piggies.
been, and I've been here involved in a long time. I don't know how it ever got snuck into this.
All right, Richard, we're gonna go back to that. I want to ask William Piggies, the copy you have, is it signed?
No, it was simply downloaded from the website. There is
Yeah.
not any place for signatures on it at all.
Yeah, same. I have the same one, Rob.
Yeah, and I do too. And I always wondered why I had an unsigned version. This predates me maybe a little bit, but anyway, we'll look into that. There's a lot of uncertainty about that part of it, but
But regardless of that, it's still that, the bylaws
No.
do state the number of the committees shall be 15.
we understand.
We're
It
kinda
doesn't
stuck
say up to or whatever, but there also says in the bylaws that we're going to get direct admin support from RA, and there's a bunch of other things and support structures that we've never gotten and never experienced. And so there's a lot
Looks
of
like somebody
inconsistencies
used-
in those bylaws. And I'm not certain that those are truly the bylaws that have been ratified. So
I
but
agree.
we'll figure that out. We'll figure that out.
Like somebody used
We
the wrong
also-
clone.
We have also operated without 15 full-time members from time
Sure.
to time
Yeah, sure we have.
for sustained. So I don't know that that's really an up to number or an absolute number because we've never paid attention to it if it was absolute.
Well, the way it's
Right.
written, it's an absolute number.
Let me go to, well, I know David and Sue, I know your hand was up for maybe another reason. Let me go to you and then to Tammy.
Well, let me follow up with that. How many regular members do we have right now? Is it 12 or 13?
We have 13 regular members and 0
13
associates.
Okay. Let me propose pretty much the opposite of what Mr. Penniman suggested. There are an awful lot of good people with good background who've signed in and asked for membership or associate membership. And my opinion would be that we should take as many of those as we can. And just be more deliberate and concise in their questions so everybody gets a voice. The only resume that I haven't seen, I don't think most of us have not seen, is Mr. McCann's, but Spurrier and Wilcox, more than anyone else, I think, wrote real resumes you understand what they do and what they've done in their past as opposed to some of the others. So I think we should we should grab what we can, because traditionally, if somebody applies and doesn't get in either as a regular member or as an associate member, they disappear. They don't come back. They don't come back the next year. And what we've got in front of us are an awful lot of good candidates.
All right. Thank you, David. Tammy.
To echo what David just said, we advertised. We had 10 applicants. The bylaws say 15. We don't have any other copy of the bylaws to do it. I think we should take the maximum number that we can. We have had the experience this last year of 2 people resigning, 2 women resigning, Jake moving out. And then the year before, we had the death of Weber. So we don't know who's going to get transferred when, who's going to get run over by a truck, who's going to need to resign for personal reasons or whatever. And we need to have people on this committee. This is not an easy committee to be on. You have to do a lot of work. You have to have an understanding of land use and of the laws and of the terminology. And you just can't put somebody on it with no building up of their knowledge. So I firmly believe we should fill our 15 for sure and 3 alternates. Thank you.
I stand by my motion.
All right. Anybody else? Bill, was that a motion or a comment?
Mine was a motion.
It was. Okay. I didn't. Do we want to?
Second. I'll second it.
All right. So there's a second to the motion. Let me just mention, and as we comment on the motion that's been seconded, my understanding of the intent of the associates was always that we haven't always been diligent with this, but they really we're supposed to fill in for a regular member if a regular member was absent from a voting circumstance. Otherwise, that at our meetings, that basically it was the 15 members that were the voting members, and the associates really didn't have voting authority unless there was a they were, taking the place of somebody for that evening. Is how I recall that was set up. And
Yeah, that's how it's written, Rob. That's what amendment to the bylaw says.
yeah, so in light of that, I mean, we could run the meetings a little differently where, I mean, I really want everybody to have a voice, and I want to hear everybody's opinion. But at the same time, we do run really long, and sometimes we just have a hard time getting everybody's comments in. And one thing we could do is limit it sometimes to some of the associates, if we have, especially if we have 3 associates. But I just wanted to remind everybody that that's how it was intended to work. And so, all right, so there's a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. Any more comment?
Rob, what's the actual motion again?
So
To add no new members this year.
That is so incredibly hostile and opposite of why on earth, Mr. Penniman, if you felt
Thank
this
you,
way,
Tammy.
are you on the were you on the committee at all to pick this? You never mentioned that before. This never came up, and we never had this conversation as a whole. Stop frowning and whining. You have, you absolutely, this is so counter to what this organization should be, which is open and getting opinions from people. We had 10 people applied. We've never had that before. Now you want to take no? What is the press going to think of that?
Tammy, I think Bill has made that statement before, well prior to the nominating committee being done. I think so. I don't think that's a new position that I recall. So everybody has their opinion. So let's respect each other's opinion, and we take a vote and move on.
I would like to point out that voting on this proposal would actually put us in violation of the bylaws.
Actually, I don't think it would.
And well, we wouldn't have 15
What it would
members.
mean is we would have a situation where if we needed to amend the bylaws, we could, and then review the issue afterwards. But we wouldn't add new members tonight.
Well, until we add new members, we're essentially in violation of the bylaws the way they read.
So, but what does that mean, William? We've been in violation then for 2+ years, right? So does that mean every vote we've taken doesn't matter? I mean,
no,
let's be realistic.
No, it doesn't mean that anything that we've done is irrelevant. It just means that we are operating in violation of the bylaws because it says.
I understand, but what does that mean?
It means exactly what it says.
All right.
The committee shall
Oh, what? That's the point.
The committee shall consist of 15 members.
No, we understand. We understand what it says. We understand what it says. There's a lot of things in those bylaws that we have not been abiding by for years. So that's something we'll have to iron out later.
Wow.
All right. There's a motion on the floor.
Are we still allowing comments?
Sure.
I would just like to add, I have some opinions on several of these things, but when I looked today and spent about an hour and a half or so on those, everyone that was had given us some sort of a request, that only 2 of them seemed to me to have a background that was would show some understanding of what we're trying to do as this as the organization we are. But that said, that I think that I agree in part with Bill's comments, but I'm very concerned that we have this this bylaw issue that without getting back, because I remember the process where the Reston Association housing person was really pushing. And there was some time, we actually pulled out of using an RA place to have our meetings because they were kind of demanding that it was their committee. And I think it's been clear that it's the supervisors committee, and that's where the authority comes from. It's very, very true that the Reston Association has other significant requirements, but and has an opportunity to weigh in on things that are in the Reston Association. But by the way, there's stuff in Reston that's not in the Reston Association. And that's why another reason for focusing on and I never heard of any past approval of the wording that is in this unsigned piece of requirement. Okay, that's all I have to say. I might vote against Bill's only because I think we need to perhaps figure this out sooner or later because it's very important. And I just found there was only 2 extremely well qualified people, but those are my feelings, and I think they're different with others, but thank you for letting me say that. Thanks.
Sure. All right. Tammy, do you have your hand up still?
No, I don't.
Okay. Then down to John. Do you have your
Yes,
hand
thank
up?
you. Thank you, Rob. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
I certainly understand and appreciate what everyone's saying. I think if we were going to proceed with this course of action, we probably should have done that a lot sooner before going through this whole process and vetting these candidates. So I will vote against Bill's motion, although I understand why he made it. And that could be something we can consider at another time. But I understand there's a lot of competing thought processes here.
All right. Thanks, John. Let me go to Katie and then to Matt.
Hey, hi. Real quick, I think I just wanted to say that, maybe to echo what people have said, but we had 10 candidates this year looking for these spots. And like John was just saying, we put out a call for candidates. So I think it's sort of a, disservice to ask people to apply for something that really we're not going to have applications. We don't have spots for them, even though the bylaws dictate that we do. And the other thing I wanted to say was, Reston is an incredibly fast growing area with lots of new people coming in that are interested and want to get involved in the community and in this committee. So I think the associates is the, perfect spot for people to get familiar with the committee and with, how the land development and developers in general, how it all works here in Virginia and in Reston. And number 2, I wanted to say some of these names of the applicants, I attended the CAC meeting this past week. I attend different stuff in Reston, and I see familiar names on some of these, and that says to me these are people that really do care about our community. And I think we should be talking about bringing those people on, maybe as associates, regardless of what their background is, as in like land use. I mean, of course, it'd be great to have those guys, but I just think some folks that are involved, I think we need to be looking at, because I think they will do the work that needs to be done on this committee. Thanks.
Okay, Matt.
Thank you. My take is I think we should, I would not support not adding any new members for the reasons that have been stated. I would support adding 2 full-time members to get our total up to 15 and 1 associate member.
Thanks, Matt. That's kind of where I am too, just to throw it out there. But any other comments before we take a
I would
vote
agree.
on that? First
I would
motion?
agree too.
All right, well, let's at least vote on that motion to add no new members. All in favor, say aye or give me some. So Bill Penniman. Anybody else that is in favor of that motion? I can't see everybody on the screen, so you'll have to voice your approval of. So Mike, that's you as well? All right. All right, so we have 2-4, unless I'm missing anybody. And then those against? Is anybody abstaining from this vote? Okay. So we have 2, 4, and 11 against, so the motion fails. Okay. Do we want to have another motion, or or more discussion? It's really open for that.
I like what Matt had to say a minute ago. I don't know if we need a motion for that, but I would agree with his assessment.
Well, if we're talking about deciding on how many members and associate members, we would need a motion.
What was Matt's essence?
I wanted to add 2 full-time members to get to 15 and 1 associate.
Do you want to make that a motion, Matt?
I would like to make that a motion, yes.
All right.
Second.
All right, John seconds. Discussion.
Rob, this is David. I'd like to make a friendly amendment to add 2 more associates.
I'll,
Oh, well, that's up to Matt to decide if he'll accept that amendment.
No, because I said 1 because I thought that's what we needed.
Yeah, I like Matt. I kind of like the notion of getting us up to our full membership, but I do worry that adding three associates at this time might be a little too much, but I certainly don't mind adding 1. So I would be in favor of that motion.
Interesting thing is that in the bylaws where it talked about the resolution which added the associate, it says at its discretion the committee may appoint up to 3 associate members. So you don't have to have a total of 3. It could be 1 or 2 or 3.
Correct.
For the record, I don't think we should be following those provisions until we see assigned, because I know the history of the debate going back and forth, and it was not pretty.
Let me see. Tammy, do you have your hand up?
no,
Okay. Katie?
Yep, I just wanted to say, I think we should have 3 because like you suggested, Rob, earlier, maybe the associates are not commenting, so it isn't like they're going to be adding time to our meeting. But again, it's people to get familiar with the committee and the process and the work that it takes to be a full member. So I know that it goes, like, I'm not voting for or against, but I guess I'm saying, I guess if this motion doesn't pass, I'd like to make a motion that we do 2 full-time and up to 3, or, 3 associates, because especially if they're not speaking, they're not adding time to our meeting.
And let's not forget that the associates can vote if there's not a full 15-member committee on any given evening. So
Yes,
they do have
exactly.
to- and they can fill out a quorum.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. So we need to take a vote. And I apologize for how.
Do you want us to raise our hands? Is that the
Well-
cleanest way to do it?
Well, does everybody know how to raise their hand in the chat that they could? And
There
then
should
take
be a bar at the top that says raise. with a little hand next to it.
Yeah, the problem is sometimes they don't remove them and then they're double counting. But you want to try that? So in favor of the motion to add 2 new members and 1 associate member.
It's been seconded, right?
Yes.
Okay. I am,
Now, Richard, I got you. You're on here.
I'm not sure, we need to make sure, or you need to be comfortable at least that, if the hand is
Well,
not.
I'm gonna verify that. So,
Good.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
So for the motion, we have Mike Jennings, we have Matt, we have Richard Kennedy, we have Bill Penniman, we have Rob Walker, and we have John Capula. So that's a total of 7. We presently have 13 members at the moment, so that's a favorable vote for the motion. Just bear with me while I jot this down.
Rob, just a parliamentary question. For membership issues, does it have to be 2/3 or simply a majority?
I'm assuming it's a majority.
Yeah, per the questionable bylaws, it's majority.
Yeah. Okay, so now let's remove the hands if we can. If you could just go and erase your hand. Okay, so that motion passed. So now we're down to deciding who those 2 members are, and then the 1 associate. And let's be reminded of the nominating committee and their recommendation. Obviously, they had Lynn as receiving the most votes, and then there was a tie between Timothy, John McGuckin, and Jared Zern. Tammy.
I make a motion that we accept Lynn as the first committee member and that we vote between the other 2 for who is the second permanent member and who would be the alternate.
I'll second that motion.
Tammy, could I ask a question of you I think we're close here, but I would agree if I'd be more comfortable if we had the vote for Lynn and and Zard. And that's and then if you wanted to add just 1 other person for an associate, but I don't like the addition. I'm not comfortable with the additional combination there.
I appreciate that, Dick. I think what we need to do is, don't we have to have a runoff between McGuckin and Zern since they were tied in the subcommittee? That is the fair thing to do. I'm agnostic on who's who, but I think we have to have a runoff.
I guess my argument is that despite all the good work and the long work that you all did, I think we had to go beyond that because of without going back over it. And I don't think we have to, I don't think that I don't think that that's true about the 1. I agree with the 2 for regular members and the other for possible in the future. So.
All right. Yes, Mr. Penniman.
So let me speak to the motion. For the reasons I'll explain. With discomfort, I oppose Lynn Mulston being added as a full-time member. In what will happen to our committee, a committee that has long been a series of members, each of whom goes his or her own way with frequency, we will now introduce coalition politics at a level that we've never seen before, and that I don't think is fair either to the members or to the applicants. During the task force process, Lynn, Tammy, Michelle, and a few others were on a small committee that was the Land Use Committee. They met in secret. No other members of the task force or the public were permitted to participate in their meetings. When votes came to the regular membership, Tammy, Michelle, and Lynn, and possibly others, voted together, I would say 95% of the time, maybe 100% of the time. What you will have is what we saw, frankly, in the context of the Fannie Mae property, a group that was tightly knit and not and functioning as a coalition. And I don't think we need caucus politics on the P&Z committee. I think it's antithetical to the way we operate. Timothy McGuckin, with an urban planning background, Jared Zern, an architectural background. I have no idea what their personal views are on issues, but that's fine because they come with technical expertise. They'll contribute something, and I have no reason to think that their votes won't be independent. But I'm sorry to say it, but we will have a caucus in operation, and I don't think that's healthy for our committee. Thank you.
I guess my question is, I mean, I was on the nominating committee. I understand how the votes went, but I mean, if you're asking me to vote again, I want to vote for my two top candidates, not necessarily who won the nominating committee. I mean, what is the vote? Is this the vote, or is the nominating committee the vote? I mean, I don't know.
The nominating committee is there to make a nomination, but this committee is there to make the final decision. So you know, take that with what you can.
Well, I guess, I mean, I'm not saying my vote's going to be any different from how I voted on the nominating committee, but I don't feel like I should be forced to vote for somebody now that I didn't want to vote for then.
You're
Right.
not forced.
No,
I
you're
would
not
agree with
forced.
that.
All right, Tammy.
I am so thoroughly offended by Mr. Penniman's comment that the land use committee was secret, it was exclusive, and it operated with no one else. That committee was open to anybody who chose to sign up for it.
That is.
We worked, Mr. Carter headed it. It was absolutely open. We worked hours, hundreds of hours, going through every parcel in Reston and describing it physically, looking up what the zoning is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How that could be said that that was caucus politics or that there would be here is thoroughly outrageous. Lynn and I and Carter were stalwarts on that committee because it took 3 years of overtime work, and we did it. And Michelle helped on some of it, and there were other people who helped on it. This was not a limited committee. Anybody who wanted to could sign up for that. Bill, you came to some of the meetings. I don't even know what you're talking about, that they were secret. That is just
Tammy, I did not.
so offensive.
That
You're
is-
in an alternate reality
Tammy,
as far
I
as
asked
it was completely transparent. And what on earth is your objection to the land use chapter? It's a very rote chapter. You're upset that the golf courses
committee
weren't
to
allowed
cons-
to be developed.
Okay,
That
let's-
is,
that's
you
a
know,
whole other
I'm
matter.
gonna stop now, but that is offensive.
Well, and I'm offended too, because I asked to be on that committee and I was not included. Jan Bradshaw asked simply to be able to attend and you told her no. And
That's not-
nobody was allowed.
That is not true.
I was there.
Okay, we're gonna move on from that because none of us were involved in that aspect of it. Richard Kennedy, do you have your hand up?
By mistake.
Okay, and then John, are you any other comment?
Just a couple of points of clarification. I had originally signed up for the membership committee as a volunteer. And we found out late in the game about different schedules, and because of work obligations, I wasn't able to attend. And therefore, I was no longer on the membership committee. So that's fine. I just wanted to make that point. And I'm not sure what exactly we were talking about just a minute ago in terms of who could not be on the task force. I also applied to be on the task force and was not chosen. So I don't know who all got to choose who was on the task force. But not everyone was allowed to be on the task force that wanted to be on it. Just point of clarification there.
And Walter made the suggestion, made the appointments. Period. He was the sole chooser of the people on the task force. And some people who were on this task force had been on the previous task force,
Wait, can you repeat
including
that,
Bill
Tammy?
Penniman.
Tammy, can you repeat that?
Walter Alcorn was the sole decider of the membership of the Reston Comp Plan Task Force. Anyone who wanted to be on any committee was allowed to join. Some people chose to be on committees, some did not. Everyone had the opportunity to comment on what chapters were saying as we went along. Everyone participated at the beginning in putting together the particular principles. We started with those, with the principles. Everybody participated. That was done in whole committee. So Walter was the sole decider. Some
Okay.
of the people on the committee had served previously, and some were brand new.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor and it's been seconded to vote for Lynn Molston as the first member, but then no other decisions on that motion. So let's take a vote on that motion.
Wait a minute, Rob, I thought the motion was for Lynn for the first and then Timothy and Jared second and third, and to be decided which one of those two. What?
That was not Tam.
Yes,
That was Tammy's motion that I seconded.
The three top vote getters would be Lynn would be on, and the
Yeah.
second permanent would be decided between Zern and McGuckin.
And then the other one would
Whoever
go
didn't
associate.
get on would be the alternative.
Tammy, I thought your motion was specific to vote for Lynn first and then do the others second.
It's a two-part process, and you're exactly right. That's how it would work out. But the decision would be between those three people. We're having three new members on the committee. That's what we voted for. Those three would be it, with Lynn being on the permanent committee. She got the most votes for the decision committee, and then the second person would be decided between Mr. Zern and Mr. McGuckin.
Hey, Rob, before we vote, I would be curious, who was actually on the membership committee? And I'd love to hear a little bit from really all of them before we take any action here.
So Mike Jennings chaired the committee. Tammy was on the committee. Bill Penniman, Matt was on the committee, and Katie. I think is that everybody?
NSA.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dennis
Then there,
Hayes, who was
yeah,
also-
well, then there was Larry Butler was the representative from Reston Association, and Dennis Hayes from RCA. So that was the full makeup of the committee.
I'll go, John, you're asking I'm not gonna say much other than my top two vote getters were Zern and McGuckin because of their industry experience and the fact that they would be new to, as far as I know, participating in Reston affairs and new voices to be heard. And then I had an associate that I liked, which because I thought we could, it's although it may be controversial, I wanted to get some people younger in age than myself, and that's why I voted for a woman named Angelica Jennings, no relation.
Good clarification there. No relation. Anybody else from the committee want to add anything to Matt's question? Or John, was that John's question?
I would just second everything that was previously said. My two top votes were McGuckin and Zern because of their professional experience, and I also think it would be great to get at least one younger person on the committee. So I actually had exactly the same votes as he did.
I had Lynn because of her 3 years worth of tutelage with John Carter, who taught how to write language, how to pay attention to language. She knows every single parcel in Reston and what the zoning is and a lot of what the history is. And she has more Reston knowledge than anybody else, save members of this committee who have been on it 30 years. She's vibrant. She understands technology. She can run meetings. She's highly professional in the way she speaks to people. She's not pushy or rude. Her demeanor is outstanding. She is trusted by Alcorn. She is trusted by Carter. She's met with the top county executives in almost every area due to her work on this for 3 years. That's why I champion her and pray that she will help us because she has knowledge that everybody and skills that other people do not have. We have lost our computer person. She's highly skilled with computer. She can help us with our technology. Somebody had commented she's too visible in the community. I went through and did a little bit of a chart on other people and what they've been doing in the community. And other people sitting on this committee now have done as much, if not more, than she has. So the hypocrisy of saying that she knows too much and she's too visible is crazy.
To answer the earlier question on how members of the committee voted in the nominating committee, I also voted for McGuckin and Zern based on the urban planning and architecture background. And I did not vote for Lynn for the reasons I previously stated, though I admire Lynn. If she were the only one, I might feel differently, but I don't want to coalition.
Okay, as another subcommittee member on the nominating committee, I voted for Lynn as my number one, and I will say, we did this before, like a couple months ago, and we're back, we're doing the same thing again tonight, which is great. But my reasons for voting for Lynn were exactly what, Tammy had said. But I do think, the nominating committee, we did this, it was long and hard and, painful, but we have three people that I think we should be voting on that the nominating committee did put forth after going around a couple different times.
Actually, if I could just add one note in terms of the task force and the P&Z, we have 5 P&Z members who are on the most recent task force. Plus, we have 3 P&Z members who were on the last task force. So there's plenty of task force knowledge. But that's aside.
All right, any other comments from, I think that,
Pardon me, but I still need to understand what the second part of the voting is. I thought I understood the first, and I thought I was going with the two people to start with that Tammy seemed to be nominating, and that would be Lynn Molston and Jared. But somehow you tacked on something else, and I'm not sure, I still don't understand what it is.
The
Would it-
idea is that you have three people who came up as the head of the nominating committee. I'm fine if I will do a friendly amendment and take Zern as number 2, if Katie will take that and have Mr. McGuckin be our alternate. Katie, are you?
I
What
would
about
second
just
that.
doing-
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank
I'll second that.
What about? Fine. Well, what about just doing a vote on Lynn, followed by a vote on McGuckin, followed by a vote on Zern?
We have a
Rob,
motion on the floor. Let's vote on that and then see where we are.
Rob, I
Right.
do have
Rob-
my hand up officially, and I do have a question. I noticed that some of the folks we're talking about are actually on the call. Is that common practice for that to occur?
no,
It's a public meeting, though.
yeah, it is. It is. But Tammy, I need you to clarify because you said a lot of things there at the tail end.
I will accept a friendly amendment if Dick wants Zern to be the second permanent. That's fine with me, and McGuckin can then be the alternative. We're going to vote on 3. That's what we decided.
When you say alternative, what do you mean by
The
that?
alternate, the associate.
So now
Yes,
you're
so-
moving McGuckin to an associate
Well,
position in
I
that.
was going to let the committee decide who they wanted, Zern or McGuckin, a planner or an architect.
Trying to clarify
So-
what your motion is.
Okay, Rob, the motion was to vote Lynn and Jared as full-time members. And what's McGuckin's first name?
Tim.
McGuckin, I can't think of the first name right now. It slipped my mind.
Timothy John.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Timothy John, to be the associate. So to vote, basically for the top 3 vote getters to go ahead and vote them as the slate and have Lynn in the order of Lynn, Zern as full-time and McGuckin as the associate. And that's what Tammy put up, and that's what I seconded.
So my comment on it is unduly confusing because people may have different opinions on each of the 3. And I would suggest we take them one at a time. Obviously, you're free to make your motion as you want. But doing a
Rob-
2-person package and changing
Rob,
it
I
gets confusing.
guess this is John. I still have some more questions. I guess I understand this is a public meeting. Are we allowed to go into executive session where it's only the members of this committee where we talk about things like this? I know when I was on the other committees that's been something we could do. Number 2, I personally feel like I know enough about the other 7 candidates to vote against them by voting in other people. So I don't know if the other people weren't qualified or we just aren't putting them forward for some reason or another. I'd like to know more about that too. And I'm just wondering if we need more time to analyze what's going on here.
This is Mike, John. To your first question, there is an Article 5, Section 1C, executive sessions that Rob can call an executive session to be restricted to legal personnel or other internal business. I can answer that question.
Yeah.
And I'll just speak to the nominating process. And Tammy, you and others who've been in it, you can chime in. The whole goal of a nominating committee is to kind of make some judgments ahead of time so that the whole committee doesn't have to spend a lot of time on it. We would come forth with the candidates that we feel would help us the best and put those forth for the committee to consider. it certainly doesn't mean, there's nothing that says those are the only ones that have to be considered, but I think the goal is to, have winnowed it down for everybody for this meeting.
And that is exactly what we did. We talked about what the one thing that John Capola was unfortunate is we didn't get to call people and actually talk to them. Mike was kind enough to do a security check to be sure nobody was a pedophile. We had one of those a year before with a wonderful sounding candidate. And as soon as that came up, thank you, Mr. Jennings, for doing that. But we did, the information that we used was exactly the information that I think was provided to everybody, but we winnowed down, we went through resumes and statements. You can go to the website and see what the candidate statements were. That was all that we had to go by. And therein lies the rub. We may get somebody phenomenal, or we can get somebody that doesn't know anything and is we have to explain things. We're looking for people who have skills and experience per the bylaws. So that's what we used when we winnowed it down to the 3 top people. That is how that happened. It wasn't just by circumstance, and we actually thought we were doing 5, 2 permanent and 3 associates. And then we came back with, okay, let's not have, and that's been voted on, that's a done deal. We're only doing 1 associate. So that was the process. Very similar to what you've experienced before, I suspect.
Thank you.
Dick Kennedy, do you have your hand up?
Not again.
Okay.
Oh,
And then Michelle, do you have a comment?
I do. It wasn't just the members of this committee who are on the nominating committee. So Rob, could you also just shed some light on how RA and RCA voted as well?
In terms of what their actual votes were?
Yes, for who, because they also looked into the members, and so who did, or those who have applied to be members, and so what were their recommendations and their votes?
Let me see if I've got that handy. Let's see. Okay, so Larry Butler representing Reston Association, all they voted for was 2 members. They did not vote for any associate members. So there was Lynn Mulston and Jeff Spurrier were the 2 candidates that Reston Association had voted for.
And their process for how they voted changed between our first vote and the second one too.
Yes.
So that was not their first vote. That's not how they voted the first time.
And can I address that, please? Since RA has been founded, the only people that can speak for the board are the president or the president of the board or the CEO. And Larry had not run this by either one. I was suggested that I contacted the CEO. I absolutely did not. I've talked to the man once at a spouse's meeting when he was first hired. I've never talked to him again. But the board was aware that P&Z was doing this process, and they got involved. And it was actually the president of the board, I believe, who insisted that Larry follow protocol. It hasn't changed since Reston was founded. I don't know, 4 years ago.
Right,
It's
but
not-
every
not
time,
a new po- It's not a new policy.
every time Larry's been on the committee, he hasn't had to run it by the board, so.
Well,
I'm
he's
just,
been in violation, apparently. I mean, I'm not the police of RA, but
Okay, so I'm sorry, but is the Reston Association Board has voted for Lynn and another candidate, is that correct?
They voted for, yeah, Jeff Spurrier, and then they chose not to vote for any associates, which was unfortunate.
Okay, got it. And then RCA, because
I don't have Dennis's information in front of me like I did Larry's, so yeah, I don't have that in front of me.
okay. And then if I may just say one thing.
one thing, Michelle, there's a third community organization, which I represented as a member of PZ, which was the Reston Chamber. So the votes that I had were for as representative of the Reston Chamber.
As a representative of the chamber, not personal votes. Got it.
Correct.
Okay. The only thing I'd like to say, I have the same information in front of me on the candidates that everyone else does. I do know I have had the immense pleasure of getting to know Lynn through this long task force process. But I'd like to just note that my experience with Lynn has been that she has always been both approachable and willing to listen and willing to put in hard work. And she is incredibly knowledgeable about land use in Reston. And I think that would be very beneficial. And I do think that both her demeanor and her approach to working with people is really just phenomenal. And I think we could all benefit from that. So I would like to just add that. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, there is a motion on the floor, seconded by Katie, to essentially to appoint Lynn Molstron as member and Zern as a member, and then make McGurkin the associate. That's the motion. All right, so let's take a vote. So all in favor of that motion, put your hand in the chat. And Michelle, I just want to make sure your hand was down and then back up, I guess. And we'll use the chat here as a.
Yes, my hand's back up. Thank you.
Oh, okay, got it.
And my hand is up but it was intended.
and I don't see my hand, but I'm putting it up.
Your hand's up.
Great, thank you.
All right, so we have in favor of the motion, we have Michelle. David and Sue, are you voting? You'll need to clarify your vote.
Yes, that's a vote for Sue.
And David.
And David, so that's two
Two
votes.
votes. Correct.
It's a twofer.
All right, so that's 7 votes in favor. Which again, we have 13 of us, so that means that's going to carry. Does anybody abstain from that vote? Is it okay to assume those who didn't vote are against that motion? So that would mean it would be 7-6, so the motion carries. So basically that makes the decision for us, correct? So we have Lynn as a member, we have Zern as a new member, and then we have one associate being McGurkin. We did it. We did. That's right. That's it, right? I mean,
I think so.
Damn, we're done.
well, listen, I appreciate everybody's work in this. There was, we obviously have some work to do in both our protocols and especially the way we go through this process. It wasn't very well defined. It's, I think you may have heard me say before, I don't ever remember having this many candidates respond at one time and to then have it be such a such a process that did need to carry on. Plus, I don't think we've ever had so many membership vacancies at one time. So, a lot of good viewpoints were mentioned tonight. I think in the future, we just have to remember we are a large committee. We all have good viewpoints. I'll stress it again that I think we need to take a lot of our comments, put them in writing, and get them to the candidate, as opposed to feeling like we have to verbally say every detail of our comment. Because I think it's more important to actually get it in writing and get it to the applicant so that they can address that a little bit more seriously. Is just one suggestion. And I think Rebecca made this suggestion a while back to actually try to, once we get some plans and information, send some of our comments even in advance to the applicant so they can address some of our comments in their statements and in their presentation as a way to and this isn't, the goal isn't always to speed things up. The goal is to just have a reasonable, amount of time for each application. And, we've been fortunate for the last year or two. We have not been that busy, but some of us can recall that there were times when we actually had to add sessions per month because it got so busy with some of the land use cases. So, it's just being mindful of time and being mindful of other people's. We want to have everybody have a voice, and we just all have to be respectful of that. Hey, one other administrative item I got to mention, and I might forget exactly how this was worded, but most of we had Jake really helping us out from an IT perspective, and he still has been volunteering to help us on that regard with our website. However, our website is no longer supported by whatever it is that was supporting it. So we are in a little bit of a world of hurt for that. And I need to understand that a little bit more, but we just found this out. Let me Michelle, I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second. Has there been any movement at all about a new website and migrating toward a new platform? Because we might have to speed that up.
I cannot remember the last conversation that we had. We had discussed some things quite some time ago, and I have not pursued it further. So I think we're in a position now where we need to just, I had looked at what the cost would be. I have to go back to my emails and see where we left things.
Yeah, last year about at this time, we talked about all of us chipping in like $10 or something like that to pay for a true website, and we all agreed that we would do that, and we might need to revisit that in the short order. But let me find out more about where we stand and what we might have to do on the immediate term, and maybe I'll just circulate an email that kind of better spells out where I think we are. Coming up in March, we do have 2 land use cases that are coming before us. I don't have that in front of me, but I'll get an advance agenda out. But I think we're starting to see a little bit of activity again, starting to come back. And I think most of these site-specific plan, comprehensive plan amendments are now being looked at various stages between Supervisor Alcorn's office and then the county. And, they did reject some, and they accepted others to proceed to the next step. And then it's kind of a step process. And so, at some point, we might see some land use cases come out of that. I think there's been a case or two that we had previously seen that have now fallen backward into that SSPA process because they didn't meet the intent of the comp plan. And so we'll just have to wait and see if some of those would come back to us.
May I ask a quick question? Just to, when we sent a note to the folks who applied but weren't accepted tonight, especially, I know I heard from a lot of folks that would like younger people involved. To the extent that we can include in our email that we would like to see them at the committee and participating. We have times when residents can also engage and can interact. It would be great, I think, and helpful if we could somehow just encourage greater participation in the email to them.
Yes, yes. Okay, now, before I forget, we actually have to elect officers tonight. We have, we had failed to do that, or well, we had to punt that to tonight.
Rob,
at our
don't we
last
have,
meeting.
don't we have to have the new members on board to vote?
No,
No.
we usually always vote before they've really been introduced at this
Okay.
point. So we will take any motions for, I guess we have the chairmanship, the vice chair, and a secretary position that we are our traditional.
I would be pleased to recommend Rob continue as our chair.
Second. I'll make a motion for Mike as our vice chair.
Well,
Second.
wait a minute. We gotta vote on each motion. All right, any discussion on that motion? And I appreciate the nomination. I certainly I enjoyed chairing this group, but I don't always feel I give it the right attention, but I will welcome to continue if that's what you all decide to do. So,
Yes, thank you.
all right, so any other comment on that motion?
When you run for these kinds of things, if you get elected, it's for life.
Well, maybe those new bylaws will have term limits in them.
I don't know,
All right,
David's still
so-
surviving.
Okay, so all in favor of the motion, either raise in the chat or raise your hand on the picture and.
No
All right,
yelling.
at least any opposed? You'll have to voice your opposition if you have it.
Unanimous.
All right, anyone abstaining from that vote? Okay. So for vice chair,
I nominate
I
Mike
move Mike
Jennings.
Jennings. Second.
all right. All in favor of that vote, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Fine.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Do we have a motion for secretary?
Dick Kennedy.
I cannot accept that.
That's definitely a
That was
life
a
sentence.
joke.
I saw you leaning forward. I thought we ought to make a move.
Does anybody want to be secretary? And then we can make a motion to make you secretary. So, I'll say this, we do need to do, a different job of recording our minutes. We kind of went to the video and we all talked about whether the video would be the lone recordation of our meeting minutes, and I think it was agreed that no, we wanted some written minutes as well. And to be quite honest, we're delinquent in that right now in terms of what's on our website and what's been populated. And so we do have some administrative support that we really could use. And it might come down to where we have to all rotate that duty of meeting taker. If it comes down to that, or maybe it's a quick draw of the hat with maybe a few minor exceptions. Tammy?
I really applaud the idea of a rotating minute taker. I think that spreads it around a little. We do have the audio, so recording the minutes or writing them up afterwards isn't that onerous. I would suggest that maybe Michelle and Lynn Molston get together with you, Rob, and talk about the website and different ways to make our processes much more fluid and automatic. But I think Michelle and Lynn are pretty savvy in this. So that would be a suggestion, but you'd have to do it at the next meeting where Lynn is a full member and speaking. We'd have to ask her, you know.
All right, yep, yep.
Yeah, well, we could have a secretary that's not a member,
Yes, we could. Yes, we could.
and that might even be best, but it doesn't have to be. Didn't suggest
Would you have a
that.
suggestion for a person that
No,
wants to do
but
this?
I've been involved in a lot of these in and out. I know many of you have as well. I think the minimum we need is when there is a vote taken and a simple listing of the people or the entities that have come before the board for our board, our committee.
I completely agree. And we had that chart system that Michelle did with the names, and then she was able to fill in the X's, and that was in the minutes, in the past minutes. But absolutely, a recording of the votes on projects and proposals in my opinion, does need to be made.
Yeah, that's in Robert's rules too, and it's yes.
Another thought on a recording secretary or recording meeting minutes might be, I like Michelle's response about getting back to, in a formal letter, to the 7 candidates who were not appointed. And we might ask if any of them should be interested. Many of them had a business background. Many of them had excelled in Microsoft and Excel programming. Perhaps if we could ask them if any of them would be willing to be, that we are looking for a volunteer recording minute taker, and make it a nicer title than that, and see if any of them might step up to the plate.
That's a great idea.
I think that's a great idea.
I was going to suggest that maybe we tap into RA or the county, but I think was that Sue's idea was probably the best I've heard all night.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
If you read our bylaws, it says that RA will provide us administrative support. And again, that has never, ever happened. And that's why I question those bylaws.
Rob, we had a couple of, since I've been on the committee, we've met and had meetings over in RA when the supervisor's office pre-COVID was not available. When there was a
no,
so
absolutely
that
we
was
did.
administrative support.
It's more. It's written more strongly than that.
In addition,
the other issue I think here is that it's very important to get to the fact that we're having a meeting on a certain date out, and if we could, the entities that we intend to work with. And I think that is particularly in the interest of our supervisor. So that may be a conversation to be had as well.
I'll just point out that in Microsoft Teams, if that's what we use, you can enable automatic transcription while the recording is happening. There should be, Shruti would have an option to, there's a start recording option, and then there's a start transcription option, which would get us pretty far along towards a text version of what's being said.
That's good to know, Mike. Bill Penniman, you had a thought.
Yeah, and that is our records should, in addition to the vote, record all the promises that get made, because that's the basis for the vote.
Excellent. You mean
And
like
those are
proffers
so
and stuff?
often forgotten.
Yeah,
No, the proffers that they do with the county, that's an official thing. But if they make promises to William to put something on a roof, or to the rest
perfect.
of us to reassure us that if something is going to happen, then we should have a record of that.
Yeah.
Good.
All right, a couple hands are up. I make sure, get everybody here. Dave and Sue, do you have a comment?
I just had one other comment, and that is, Dave and I spent time reviewing all of the curriculum vitas, and there were some really exemplary vitas, and one thing that seemed to be missing in all of them, but perhaps subcommittee or the task committee who was selecting them had this information, and perhaps we didn't. But I'd like to see in the future that candidates should state their goal or their reason for applying. Why do they want to serve as volunteers on PNC, and what do they see as their contribution to planning and zoning in Reston? I just think that was sort of a missing link, but perhaps that was actually expressed during the selections process.
That is part of the application. That is specifically one of the parts of the application, isn't it, Rob, on that form? If you go to the website and look at the form, that is what you just said. The CV is what I think you guys got.
Yeah, that's what we saw.
But
Right.
but
Mhm.
those forms, and some of the people didn't give us the CVs until very late. So
I did, we had it in the committee, we had a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet that included a column that had, the question is, what are
Great.
your thoughts and objectives and goals for the
Right.
Reston PNC committee?
Okay. Good. That's all.
All right, Matt, do you have any other comments?
I do not. I just had my hand up from before.
All right. And Tammy, as you're done?
I'm done. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Pease.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody got the email that I sent out about Haley Rise this afternoon, or somewhat before the meeting time. That is the Brookfield is actually doing more for urban agriculture now than what we even knew of related to their farm project. And that is they've gone back now to Fairfax County, doing the permitting for installation of greenhouse and a community garden area, and also beehives
Wow.
in a separate additional area to the existing farms project that's right next to Wegmans. And they're going to have community events where you can take tours and interface with schools to come out and take tours, and then some different other festival events. And it'll all be open to the public at all times. And that's sort of the beginning of what they're doing. The other interesting thing that I found out is that though they could get a tax credit for this, they're not taking it. Maybe it's just too much paperwork, because it's not a really big thing. It's like something like $25,000 in a yearly basis kind of thing. But all of the produce that is produced from this goes to a charity that then distributes it to other charities that provide food for the needy. So this is pretty interesting. They're doing this sort of like on their own. Of course, it came after I pointed out to them that they were really already doing this downtown for several years. and now they're going to move into Virginia and start doing this with all of their projects. They're trying to create urban agriculture for on a charity basis, as well as for community gardens. So that's kind of really interesting to see happening there. maybe we can shame some other developers into doing something similar.
Yes, Tammy.
This afternoon late, something weird came over Washington Business News, and that was an article about golf course overlook, which is on Sunset Hills, north of Sunset, south of the golf course. Some of you may remember that project. It was going to be a residential community, and they had quite an interesting playground to the west of the building, and it's right on the WNOD. That has been put in abeyance for lack of financing. But the interesting thing, and who knows what's going to happen, the owner of the property wants to revert it into commercial and childcare, but the new zoning doesn't permit it. So we have a non-conforming request. So it'll be interesting to see what the Planning Commission does with that. And we've never had something that I know of where we went to a new zoning and then had to, and then it didn't work. And so we're reverting. It's a fascinating, odd little quirk. So I just thought I'd mention that for.
But I thought that it wasn't changing. The long-term, the long-term county statement and for Reston was the two golf courses stay. And
No, it has nothing to do with the golf course, Dick. It's overlooking. It's golf course over.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry. Okay.
That's, yeah, it was
Okay.
a residential, on a little bit of land, right
Okay.
on, yeah. So it's just, the new zoning is non-conforming to what the owner wants now to revert and put it back into commercial and a childcare.
Very interesting.
So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's probably a wrap for tonight. I did want to lead with or finish with just saying this. I mean, you heard a lot of good viewpoints tonight. I mean, this is a very special committee and a very special community, and each one of us brings a unique perspective to this, not only this group, but to the applicants that come before us, and where we can kind of play a role in molding the Reston's future. We do have boundaries within, whether it's the comprehensive plan, whether it's the zoning ordinance, whether it's the public facilities manual. I mean, there are factors and things that we're here to help guide people in a direction, and especially in Reston, where we have maybe some unique requests of applicants, but it's very appreciated, everybody's efforts, and I look forward to another good year for this committee, and just we'll see what type of applications we get this year. But like we said, we have some work probably to do behind the scenes, between whether it's our bylaws or whether it's the website, or whether it's better access to drawings on via different mechanisms. That was the other part of the website we were trying to beef up. So we do have a bit of work ahead of us, and it might take some various subcommittees maybe at times just to hash out a few things and maybe get some real action going. So stay tuned on that. We might look for some additional volunteering for some of that in the future. So with that, why don't we call it a night, and
Yay.
get back in touch in March.
And
Thanks very
thank
much.
you,
Great.
Rob. Thank you, Mike, for everything you do for the committee. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah, thank you for your votes.
Thanks, Rob.
All right.